So we're going to shoot into a video today about how a broke person can begin to get leverage to become wealthy, or how somebody who has terrible social skills can gain leverage to build amazing social skills and bring amazing people into your life. Or maybe how somebody who is not spiritually tapped in could make the time to do that. And I'm saying this just pointing out the largest pedestrian bridge, I think, in the country. We're in Gatlinburg right now, actually heading to an event in Nashville this weekend, doing a free event there up in Nashville. Really excited about it. And if you look at this bridge right here, that is kind of how I think about it, is like this giant gap that you're trying to get across, right? This is like the broke person side of the bridge, or the person who doesn't have social skills, or a significant other that you're attracted to, or maybe the side of the bridge of someone who is stuck up in your head and not tapped in and just sort of having your consciousness suppressed. That's this side of the bridge. How do we begin to gain leverage in our day-to-day grind when we're so busy, we have so much going on, that we could get to that side of the bridge? And I've actually been in a wheelchair for the past couple months, but I'm walking a little bit again, so we're going to attempt my new found walking and see if we can walk across this bridge. Let's do it.
Standing tight on your feet, light as air, just like me.
So I want to break into this by talking about one of my favorite video games of all time, which is Ghost of Tsushima. It's a sword fighting game, and it's these different samurai warriors that are fighting each other. Now, in the game, it's a game of strategy where you've got to get these kind of little quick shots off on your opponent's shield. And eventually what will happen is if you can keep kind of tapping and poking at your opponent's shield, their defense is going to break. And then what's going to wind up happening is you get an opening to strike sort of like a heavy-hitting shot and take their life bar down. Okay, it's an amazing game. I'm not a big video game guy, but that game is totally awesome. Now, in the same way, I think about that in life, where basically what winds up happening to you is you go to high school, and maybe your guidance counselors or whoever ask you what kind of job you want. You know, what is it that you want to do with your life? And you say, okay, I want this job or that job or the other job. Maybe you go take on college debt of some kind of trade school debt. Maybe you don't. But what winds up happening is you usually have a debt, and then usually what you'll do is you'll wind up renting a house and getting a car and getting a phone bill and getting an insurance bill that is right on the edge of what you can just afford. And the reason why you do it is because you're looking at different houses and you're like, well, I could probably get this one. Or, you know, you look at a different car, you're like, well, I could probably get this one, right? Most people don't even put away for retirement. So, well, and they're not benefiting from the insane components of compound interest. So basically what happens is that you now wind up sort of stuck in this zone where you can't do anything to advance because your day is basically just being burnt down in this sort of, typically, not always, but typically, this very repetitive job. And the job is just kind of looping. And you're just kind of trying to get to your weekend. So that is sort of like how I see it. I barely work at all, okay? I maybe work about 2-3 months a year. I'll talk a little bit about why that is later, but I think that any teacher that's telling you I work all the time and they're in their 40s, I don't know if that's a teacher that I'd really want to be watching unless it's some kind of legacy project they're doing, because you're not really supposed to be working super hard past your 30s, right? Like, you're supposed to be semi-retired by about 40 to 45, you should just take those years off to spend with your children, and then maybe 45 to 65, maybe you leave some kind of legacy to try to make the world better for your children. But you're supposed to be able to take some time off and actually enjoy your life and do things. So if you look around right now, we're just going to kind of take a little view. Like I mentioned, I'm on a trip to the South right now. I did some events down here. I did Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville. And, you know, later this year or later this summer, I'll wind up doing Portland and Seattle, Hawaii, Chicago, places like that. And I'm basically do events like that myself just to bring my children there. Like, it's just an excuse to bring my kids. There's no other reason. So I've had my kids down here in the South for about 3 weeks. They were up here earlier. They're at a place called Anakeesta right now. We were in Savannah. We were in Charleston. We were in Wilmington, which is where Michael Jordan grew up. We did Atlanta. We're going to wind up doing the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is amazing. We're doing the Great Smokies, right? That's called living your life. And I feel like not enough teachers talk about that. Like, what does it mean to actually live your life? That's called living life, or other things like it, your own version of that. Whatever that is for you is called living life. Living life is not just grinding and grinding and grinding. But why is it that you do things like this? You do it because you're trying to capture back some of the value of what it is that you built, right? You grind and grind and grind and grind. You want to capture some of that value back. Well, I view this entire thing largely as sort of a leverage play, okay? This kind of leverage play or leverage game. And what I mean by a leverage play or leverage game is that basically you're in your 20s, you grind, and then you're trying to get these little gaps where maybe you could read a book. Or you're trying to get these little gaps where you have a little bit of extra money for supplements or really nutrient-dense foods that could help you to build your brain. Or you grind so that you could actually have off a couple hours a night to go out and work on your social skills. Grind so you have some time to read spiritual texts. And look down, by the way, this is just awesome. You gotta look down. You grind so that you can have off that hour a night to meditate or a couple hours a night to read spiritual texts or holy scriptures or things like that. You grind so that you can actually go out on a date with somebody who you'd actually like to meet or things like that, right? So you're basically trying, and by the way, the really big one is you grind so that you can actually have time to go learn about things like sales copywriting or marketing or product creation or things like that. And the entire thing is a leverage play, okay? So this was basically how I lived my life from the time that I was in high school really up until now, which is basically just me playing life a lot like a video game, much like the game Ghost of Tsushima. It's just this giant video game. And all that I'm trying to do is just get I'm trying to kind of keep the plates spinning that need to be spun for things to function. Grind, and then grabbing gaps. And then when I have that gap, I don't go smoke weed, I don't drink, I don't waste time on things that are hurting me. I use that time on things that are gonna help me to gain leverage. And it's literally just this giant video game of leverage. I feel the pain of this because whenever I do free events, people will come up to me and they'll say, oh man, this is so cool. I wish I could get on one of your proper trainings because even the free event, just incredible. Imagine the proper one. And what winds up happening is I say, there's always a couple people at every event that will jump on. That's really cool. But you'll see that there's other people there that they're like, wow, this free thing is so crazy. Like, what would the real event be like? And what I say to all of them, the ones that aren't able to make it, is I say, look, the reason you're not able to come do this for yourself, because coming to my event would be something you're doing for yourself. The reason why you can't do it for yourself is you haven't built your life in a way where you've got a little bit extra cash, nothing even crazy, but you don't even have that little bit extra cash. But more important, you're not able to get a weekend off. And what does that say about you? What does that say about anybody if you can't even get a weekend off about how it is that you've been living your life? So you've really got to start thinking about this a little bit more strategically, right? Like me talking about how I only work about 2 months a year. Well, that was because I played the leverage game, grind, AKA having the, pushing back the shield on the Ghost of Tsushima opponent, pushing that shield back, and then from there, getting that little bit of extra space where now I can actually build myself up. And so what I basically did, I would always make sure I had 4 hours a night to go out. I always made sure that I had a pitch black room where I could sleep in so I could work on my social skills. I always made sure that I had time to work on creating products. Like I spent years working on Blueprint Decoded, years working on Blueprint Reloaded, years working on our best program ever. With all the real life interaction, just years and years working on this stuff. Years working on how to write sales copy and create products, and years spent coaching. Even me doing free events, that's me also doing something for myself because I'm working on my improvised public speaking. Shooting quick videos like this is something for myself, and you've got to have the time to do that. So you've got to structure your life in a way where you actually have time to do something for yourself, to break yourself out of this sort of bizarre, crazy headlock that you're in. It's like you're in this kind of MMA headlock. You've got to spend your life learning how to break out of that. And then basically with that extra organic food, so, you get your brain working a little bit better. With that extra marketing training, you now know how to make money. With that extra work on creating beautiful products, you can now make more money and add more value to the marketplace. With that time to work on social skills, you can expand your social network, bring better people in your life. With that time to work on meditation, getting present, you have that time to get more tapped in so you even resonate with real success so that unlike most people, you don't go and you mess it up. This is all a leverage play. So like I said, just looking at that bridge over there that we just crossed, looking over there, and what we see is it's all a leverage play to get from one side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge, and then this is the side of the bridge called, in my case, I haven't been sick in 12 years. I'm sure it'll be more by the time you see this. don't work more than 2-3 months a year, enjoy my life, don't get in a bad mood. My greatest stress is trying to find a cool mugs to bring back to enjoy from the vacation, okay? So by the time you're in your 40s, you should not have stress. You should not have problems. And then what you could do is later in your life, if you want to kind of give your life to something truly beautiful and legacy, truly, truly beautiful, then what you can do is you can go, obliterate yourself, but not for money, but for something you actually want to do, right? You shouldn't be like, by the time that you're 40, you should spend those years raising your kids. Okay, don't wait till 65 to raise your kids. Right? Oh, great father, worked like crazy, never saw his kids, but at least paid for them. Well, yeah, that's definitely better than nothing for sure. That's amazing compared to the average father. But I think real fatherhood means being able to take off 5 or 10 years to raise your kids properly. And then from there, once they're kind of raised, then you go back and you do something legacy-oriented to try to make the world better for them. Or maybe it's something that you just spiritually resonate with or whatever else it is, right? But it's about getting leverage.
You wanna dance, you don't know how to get it on the floor, man. Don't hold back for anyone. Close your eyes, just follow the inner light. You count on me.
So that component was about using your time effectively. The next thing that I want to talk about is sharpening the saw. And what I mean by sharpening the saw is simply having better information so that every single stroke of the saw that you're doing is cutting down more of the tree. So the analogy of sharpening the saw is this. Let's say that you're sawing and sawing and sawing and sawing and sawing. And maybe you're cutting down 1 tree a day or 5 trees a day or 10 trees a day. But imagine if you just stop sawing for a minute and you take a weekend to sharpen the saw, and all of a sudden you're cutting down 50 trees or 100 trees. Well, if you want to understand that sharpening the saw analogy correctly, I would say that sharpening the saw, in actuality, might get you triple to quadruple the amount of progress in your life. But properly sharpening the saw as a metaphor, as far as like getting the proper knowledge, would be a lot more like getting a giant bulldozing company, and you wouldn't even need a saw anymore. You would literally just be taking down an entire forest, like strip mining it, okay, which is terrible in terms of that forest analogy, but you get the point, right? Like proper knowledge means that you're going to have orders of magnitude more return on investment for your money. So right now what I see, okay, like when I look around here, I see a lot of people on a beautiful vacation, which is amazing, but I also see a lot of people struggling. And what I'm seeing from my point of view is just people who have not, first of all, figured out how to get the time to do something for themselves. But second of all, they're not using whatever time they do have to sharpen the saw. So you've got to say to yourself, okay, well, how do I sharpen the saw? And generally speaking, here's how it kind of goes. You want to have mentors and people who you pay that are above you. You want to have peers and people that you can interact with that you don't pay any money to. And then you want to have people that you're helping, because those are the people that help reinforce the lessons that you're getting, okay? Now, unfortunately, you cannot have a top-notch mentor at all times. That makes sense, right? That's just not possible. But what you can do is you can use free resources temporarily to get yourself to the point that you can get better help. So what does that mean? Well, in my case, I have something like a free course. You ever heard of that? Like an actual free course. You can click the link below. There's an entirely laid out free course that I put in there. I created that free course to help you make more money, to help you get better social results, and to help you get more spiritually tapped in. I created that course, not just with me rambling out on vacation, but at home, written out, step by step with the exact steps that you need so that you can get started, so that you could easily get to the point where maybe at some later point you could take me on as a proper mentee. I did that as an investment in you. That's a free course. Click that link. Or, again, I do free events. Now, is that the same thing as me doing a proper infield training with you? No, it's not. But they're pretty freaking incredible. They have networking there. You get put into an uplifting environment for a weekend. Well, where do you find that? Also click the link below, okay? And I do those all over the country. All the time in New York, Boston, Philly, DC, Los Angeles, Vegas, Phoenix, Seattle, Portland. I mean, I'm everywhere, okay? Name a city, I'm everywhere. Okay, fly in for it or take a drive in for it. Those are free resources, okay? Click the link and actually get started on that. As soon as you get into the free one, we also start hitting you up and getting you a mastermind group, okay? We put you in a mastermind group, free groups of other like-minded people. Those are free resources. Then what do? You get a little bit more money. Maybe then at that point you get a paid resource. Now, when you think about it, when people that are making money take a course, do you think that they're paying for that? No, they're not paying for an expensive course. They're getting paid to take an expensive course. Why is that? Because once you're in momentum, you get an ROI on what it is that you're doing. So in other words, if you're somebody who has a good business, you don't pay to eat super healthy organic food. You get paid to eat super healthy organic food. Okay? You don't pay to say go to some kind of spiritual retreat, you get paid to go to a spiritual retreat because you're in enough momentum that you can utilize those things to get a return on investment. So that is why what you do is when you first start, you utilize free resources as much as you can. You get peer groups and you participate with helping people below you. You get a little bit of momentum and you put yourself in a position that you get paid to do certain things, right? Like an expensive watch often is an investment. An expensive car often gets you invited to networking groups where other rich people are there so you can get paid to own the expensive car. That's what you have to understand, is that the rich get richer, the poor get poor for a reason. The rich get richer because they are in a virtuous cycle where they are getting paid to sharpen the saw. They're also networking with each other. They know each other, and they're getting better opportunity and access to better lead base and access to better information. And they're giving each other little stock tips and things like that. So what you see when you see people struggling are people that are not utilizing their time properly. They're not sharpening the saw. And unfortunately, whenever they do invest in something to help themselves, they're having to pay to do it. They don't have an immediate ROI on it. And what I want to get you to is across that point to where you are now getting paid off of that work. So that's just a little message that I want to leave you here with today. Utilize the free resources that I give you. Utilize other people's free resources. Make the most out of it. Every time that you're in your car, be listening to audiobooks. Whenever in your car, be listening to things that educate you. Be educating yourself in every spare moment that you have. Things like food, if you can't afford to eat organic, well then go get the healthiest non-organic food, like things like watermelon that have a thick peel and don't get hit up by pesticides. Like, utilize free resources and cheap resources while you have them, then get a little bit more expensive, then get a little bit more expensive, then get a little bit more expensive, and eventually you can actually have leverage, right? So the problem is that something that's very, very expensive for a broke person, it's almost like having this giant pole vault, but they don't have enough leverage to like bounce off of the pole vault. So you need a smaller little pole vault stick, right? Then you can kind of bounce off that a little bit. Later you get more speed, you can bounce off a bigger one. Later you get more speed, you can bounce off of a bigger one. Then you go like that, and now next thing you know, you're in outer space. That's what I'm trying to say to you, is you have to learn how to see life as a video game, and you have to learn how to see your life just like in Ghost of Tsushima. Boom, 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 you get a little opening, and then from that opening, what do? You actually make some real progress.
I can breathe, learn to sing like do-re-mi. So you wanna dance?
So back when I was younger, you would see me doing things like living on floors or finding different people who I could coach for free to let me stay at their house, or doing things like internships in order to learn from the best people. And this was just sort of an ongoing thing of just scrapping and fiending and fighting and clawing just to be able to get a little bit more education or just to get a little bit more leverage, okay? So to put in context, like when I was learning social skills, my buddy and I, we traveled the entire world, not to be able to see real life interaction footage from home like you have gotten to, but rather, because that didn't exist at the time, we would travel from city to city, just sleeping on people's floors and couches, just so that we could watch them go out and socialize. And we did this because we understood there was no other possibility of us learning this stuff. And we could see that we were onto something because there was little groups on the internet where people were actually sharing their ideas. And some of these people were pretty good and it seemed promising. Now, I want to put in context that when I would do this, there was a few times that I would travel across the country, barely able to eat, sleeping on floors, to go meet up with somebody who sucked. Okay? So you know how in this day and age, like, you know, somebody might say, watch a video that they don't like and they're like, this sucked. I'm like, do you understand that I would have paid like thousands of dollars and weeks of my time to see something that sucks? And this video is actually half decent. Okay, so when I was a boy, I would cross the country to go see that person to learn those social skills, okay? That's what I was doing. I would pay $700 to attend certain seminars where the knowledge was very, very basic. It had nothing in-field related. And the speaker was somewhat experienced. And that was about it. And I would go repeatedly writing down notes so that I could try to get leverage. As soon as I learned that you could take things like nutritional supplements, because you could actually get clearer thinking, like you'd get less brain fog and your mind would work better with nutritional supplements, I got to the point that I started burning thousands of dollars every month just to eat more nutrient-dense foods, better nutritional supplements. I became obsessed. Same thing with marketing. I spent years living in an oceanfront apartment in Hawaii just studying direct response marketing. Also, every single hour that I could go out, I was doing social experiments and meeting up with other people, learning how to do it. So that would be what I've just described, the tip of the iceberg. But remember that I had to pay to live, I had to pay to exist. This was ongoing. But I understood at a base level that I was going to have to fight and claw for leverage all the time. And that was just how it was going to be. I can remember back when I first started doing YouTube, which is, if you're watching this way in the future, that was one of the first social media platforms before everything went to hell. And basically what happened was I would be doing trainings, and I would be recording those trainings and then taking all this extra time to post them on YouTube. All my business competitors, even the people on my own team were like, why are you doing this? Are you crazy? I'm like, no, I have to use every last spare second to get YouTube videos. If I would go off to Seattle, I would run up to, get a video of myself in front of the Space Needle or whatever. In a 20-minute period that I had, I would just take a cab up there, get a 7-minute video, shoot back down the hill, and keep teaching. And I would do that on a break because I understood that would show that I'm kind of jet set. It would show that I'm teaching in different cities. And again, I'm getting just a little bit of leverage. So every single thing that it is that you want to do has to be constantly grinding and fighting and clawing like an animal trying to survive, but to get knowledge leverage, nutritional leverage, spiritual leverage, skills leverage, financial leverage. And this just has to be ongoing in order to get you jump started. Now, I'll tell you this. It's a lot like a fun video game. And just like in a video game, as you get, better armor, like in the Ghost of Tsushima video game or God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, some of my favorite games, you will play the game and then you get these better weapons, you get better ammunition, you get better armor. And then it's funny in those open world games, at the end of the game, you're actually allowed to just keep running around the open world. You have no, and they'll let you run around the open world and just killing people, like killing the bad guys. And what happens is that you're too strong now. You're actually too strong. You're so strong that you could just wipe everything out within 2 seconds. And as a result of that, the whole time that you've been playing the game for like 100 hours to beat it, whatever it took you, you're thinking, how cool would it be if I had all those weapons so that I could run around more freely? Well, guess what happens once you no longer have that challenge to get to the next thing? You get bored of the game, you turn it off, you pick another game. And that's because these games, the incredibly brilliant game designers are able to mirror what our psyches naturally crave in these games. And what our psyches naturally crave is for things to be hard at first, to have to fight and claw for little small amounts of leverage, like for that little bit better weapon, then later a little bit better weapon, later a bit better weapon. By the way, just catch the view as we turn in here. It's very nice. Beautiful view of the city as we're coming down. But anyway, yeah, you're just catching more and more leverage as you're going. Oh, look at that. Look at that Space Needle looking thing. Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned the Space Needle. Gatlinburg has its own kind of like semi-Space Needle. But anyway, so the point being is that you're unhappy once you beat the game. So you're thinking right now, like, oh, I've got to fight and claw for leverage. It appeals to your psychology a lot more than you realize, okay? So again, like I told you, when you're starting off, it's like you have the little guy weapon, the little guy armor, right? For you, that would be my free course or the free events that I do, which are still freaking incredible. That's like putting you halfway through the damn game right from the jump. Utilize things like that. Other teachers have their versions of that. Books that you can read. Maybe you can go become an intern for somebody or whatever, right? But be actively looking for those little small amounts of leverage so that you can pole vault higher and higher and higher. And once you get to this point, you will find that later, take myself, maybe only working 2-3 months a year. Now I run through the open world, but what I do is instead of needing entrepreneurship to meet challenges for me is how high of quality time can I spend with my kids? Or how crazy of an adventure can I go on? What new places can I go and see? So the cool thing is that you don't have to stop the adventure just because you're not making money anymore, then you just sit there rotting to death. Rather, what you should try to do is retire early, and then once you're retired, what I always say is it takes about 5 years just to learn how to spend the money. I don't think the average person even knows how to spend the money for several years. So if you wait until you're 65 to retire, you're probably not even going to understand how to spend the money properly to enjoy it until about 70. But even at 65, you're probably too old to learn from scratch. So your whole life's going to suck. So you should have a sense of urgency to build leverage, get this handled as quickly as humanly possible. And that is how you will live an amazing life. Okay, so we just came off the Sky Park. That was right over there. And Gatlinburg here, I just want to show you the city for a second before we wrap this, actually. This city is so crazy. I came here to go to the Great Smoky Mountains. I was unaware of how kind of like there's this sort of Vegas-like, but it's like a family-friendly Vegas right in the middle of the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, which I'm going to on my way to Nashville. So you're seeing this. It's kind of like a miniature version of Vegas, but it's for families. And then up there is that Space Needle thing. So maybe we'll actually wrap the video up there. Why not? I was going to end the video.
Sorry.
but when's the next time I'm going to be in Gatlinburg? So why don't we shoot up? Okay, so in fact, Gatlinburg does have a Space Needle. We just got to the top of it. We'll go check out Gatlinburg a little bit here. But anyway, I want to leave you off actually with just one other addition to this that came to my mind even as I was wrapping up. So when I was younger, oh, look at that. There's the bridge up there. I don't know how well you could see in the dark like that, but it looks kind of cool. When I was younger, and I would have a paper route. Now, as far as I know, paper routes are often illegal for younger people these days. But the main point of the paper route was that I had to work those angles super, super, super hard. So on the weekend, I would have... The first paper route I had was called the Penny Saver, and there was 17 or 18 of these so-called inserts, which were these kind of like slippery little pieces, these little slippery advertisements that you had to put inside of the newspaper. And later I got the Ottawa Citizen, and that was a bigger paper, and you would have to go to collections, and you would try to get tips on every single collection that it is that you do. Now, when I did this paper route, I was trying to work that angle super, super, super hard, and my main goal was basically to have it to where, even though I was only maybe trying to get a 25-cent tip or a $1 tip or a $2 tip, I was trying to work that angle as hard as I could so that I could learn something about business, about customer service, about how to engage with people. Later, when I got into college, I also worked those angles super, super hard, and I would go to every single possible extracurricular activity that I could, like different philosophy colloquiums with PhDs and different professors and out-of-town professors that would come into town. Likewise, when I was doing my internship with the people that taught me about personal growth, I also was working and working and working, typically harder than the people that I was actually helping for free. So the extent to which you actually work these different angles, that is training you. If you work at McDonald's, you can become the best McDonald's employee. But in effect, what you've got to be doing is creating habits of momentum so that you become one of those rare people where Timothy S. Grover talks about this in the book Relentless in Winning. Basically, he calls it a cooler, a closer, and a cleaner. A cooler is somebody who's effective and professional. A closer is somebody who gets the job done. But a cleaner is someone who's transcendent and will always get the job done, even if they have to go 50 meta levels above in order to accomplish the goal. Okay, Kobe Bryant, late great Kobe Bryant, was somebody like that. So that being the case, make a decision to be a cleaner, so to speak, although I don't think who would have said that this video would be called be a cleaner, but what Timothy S. Grover would call being a cleaner. Make a decision to learn that while you're younger and trying to get leverage. So in other words, if you get a free course or invited to a free seminar, or maybe you get some kind of a mentor, or maybe you have people that you're mentoring that are a little bit below you, actually work those angles as hard as you possibly can. And the habits that you create when you're young will allow you to thrive when you get older. Anyway, basically just putting it together, the Ghost of Tsushima analogy, then looking at getting leverage in all of the key main areas of personal growth, how to maximize your time, then how to get the right information, and then now looking at this from an angle of being what Timothy S. Grover would call a cleaner, okay? In other words, using the low-level responsibility opportunities that you have when you're younger to build the best habits, all right? Anyway, checking out of here from Gatlinburg. I will see you later, and I'll be back with more soon. Peace.